Hi there, my name's Kimberly DeGifis, and I am going to be talking about the results from my literacy assessment I did with a fourth grade student. I'm calling her Nicole. Her age is 9.4, and we did the testing on November 10th, 2016. So, a little bit about Nicole and why I chose to work with her. Nicole attends a public school in Eugene, Oregon. She has struggled with attendance in the past, and her mom was reported for truancy in kindergarten and first grade. After first grade, she began living with her father half of the time, and on that side of her family, there are just many educators. She gets a lot of support for homework and positive reinforcement for doing well in school. So we saw a really positive spike in her homework completion and just her complete overall attitude towards school when she started spending time at this other home, as well as her mom's home. She's required speech therapy in the past. She is not receiving it anymore. Um, she was having issues, I think, because her mom's not a native English speaker, and she was sort of um, having trouble where she would say a word, for instance, that starts with the R, but when she would write it, she would begin with an L, and when she would read it, um, she wasn't speaking the right um, the right sounds for each letter. So she received 2 years of speech therapy, and that actually helped a lot. That began in second grade also. Um, and she's currently reading and writing about a grade or two levels below her own. She understands the school's important and she wants to do good. And she actually enjoys school, but she struggles because she's so far behind in her ability for reading and writing that she often ends up feeling stressed out. Her teacher identified her as someone possibly needing further support and maybe an IEP, so that's why we began the testing process. I worked with Nicole on 5 tests. We did the Tower 2 test of word reading efficiency, looking at sight words and phonemic decoding. We did the Easy CBM. We looked at her reading comprehension and oral reading fluency. We also did a spelling test using Words Their Way and used the elementary spelling inventory. We did a reader self-perception scale, which looks at progress, observational comparison, social feedback, and physiological states. The last test we did was the Gray Oral Reading Test 5th edition, which looks at rate, accuracy, fluency, and comprehension. So we began with the Tower 2, which is a norm-referenced word reading fluency assessment. There's 2 sub-tests that we did. One was a sight word, and one was a phonemic decoding. And when you combine the scores for those, you get the total word reading efficiency. So for sight words, she was in the 2nd percentile, and for phonemic decoding, she was in the 37th percentile, which left her at below average when combined. This was the first test we did. It went by really quick. The sight word part, she did pause between words, and she also a few times looked up at me after saying the word for confirmation. I sort of just kind of told her, "Oh, just keep looking at your paper and do your best." So this did kind of trip her up a little bit. She didn't get as many words as she probably would have if she would have just focused on looking at the paper. When she did the phonemic decoding efficiency test, she did it with much more ease. She made less mistakes. She didn't need any confirmation that what she said was correct. So she really seems to have a very strong phonemic awareness, and just you could tell she felt better about that test after she took it as well. So her test results, I'll go into the sight word efficiency. She got a raw score of 40, which put her in the 2nd percentile. And and her scaled score was 69. Her age equivalency was 7.3, and her grade equivalency was 1.8. This left her in the very poor status range for sight word efficiency. The phonemic decoding, she got a raw score of 30. This put her in the 37th percentile and gave her a scaled score of 95, age equivalency of 8.6, grade equivalency of 3.2, and that's an average status for a student of her age and grade level. So then when you add the sight word and the phonemic together, you get the total word reading efficiency index. And she got a scaled score of 81, and that left her at a below average level for her grade. The next test we looked at was the EasyCBM. It's a curriculum-based measure in oral reading fluency, vocabulary, and reading comprehension, and it's designed to monitor students' progress throughout the year. And it interprets students' performance by comparing their raw score in whatever measure you're looking at with the percentile rank associated with that score. So anything under the 50th percentile indicates that a student's performing below average and they might need some sort of intervention or extra support. The two subtests that we looked at were the oral reading fluency, where she scored in the 22nd percentile, which left her below average, and also the reading comprehension, which she scored in the 37th percentile, which was also below average. Nicole began with the oral reading fluency test, and she really got through that with a very upbeat attitude, and the reading comprehension test was the harder and much longer part of this EasyCBM testing. It took her about an hour to read through the 3-page story, and she asked for lots of bathroom breaks. She looked up at me and asked about just little questions about the story as she read it. And I constantly had to kind of remind her, oh, this is a test, I can't help you, but just do your best. The test was followed with 20 questions, and that kind of seemed to stress her out. She kept asking how many more, oh my gosh, and she read the questions out loud to herself before she would answer them. And then I do want to say that even though she was stressed, she was positive and happy throughout the test. So she got 83 correct words per minute in her oral reading fluency, and she scored 11 out of 20 on the reading comprehension test, which is 55%. So she was in the 22nd percentile for oral reading fluency and the 37th for reading comprehension. And as we said on the slides prior, those are both below average scores. The words Their Way Elementary Spelling Inventory was our next test, and it is a 25-word test. The words are ordered by difficulty, and you begin by calling out words and you continue until they miss at least 5, so that you have 5 words to kind of analyze for what type of mistakes they're making. Her test went pretty quick. She remained happy and upbeat. She did repeat the words to herself out loud. And at first she was doing it, at normal voice level, and then looking at me, and she'd spell it out loud and then look kind of like, oh, is that right, before writing it. And I had to ask her just to, stop speaking out loud. I told her she could kind of whisper to herself if that helps her spell, but that I couldn't help her or tell her if it was right or wrong. So she really seemed this whole time we were doing the test to really enjoy the social interaction and the one-on-one attention she was getting. And I think that kind of became her priority on top of actually doing well on the tests. So I kind of tried to diffuse that by telling her that if it does help her to whisper, she could, but please make it so that I can't hear it, because I really can't help her or respond or even react to any of those social cues. When I went to grade the test, I noticed that she was struggling between distinguishing between the letters D and B. When she spelled bed, she spelled it DEB, and she spelled marched with a B at the end. So she clearly needs help just with her alphabetic knowledge. She does excel in her phonological understanding of word formation, and she also has a good understanding of digraphs and letter blending, as we can see in her results here. She got 4 out of 25 words spelled correctly. She landed in the early within word spelling stage after analyzing her feature points and her total score. That's how you get the early within word. And you also go and look at each of these little subcategories. So she got 1 out of 7 consonants, 5 out of 5 short vowels, 5 out of 6 digraphs, 6 out of 7 blends, 2 out of 5 common long vowels, 3 out of 7 other vowels, and 1 out of 5 inflected endings. She scored 0 on syllable junctures and unaccented final syllables, harder suffixes, and bases and roots, but we stopped the test before I even tested her on any of those. So that's why I kind of clumped them together at the 0. The next test that we did was the reader self-perception scale. And this is a 33 statement test about students' perception of themselves. So they score each question 1 through 5, whether they strongly agree, they're undecided, disagree, or strongly disagree. That's a typo. There are 4 dimensions of self-efficacy, and one is progress. She scored 28 out of 45, which is low. The next is observational comparison, which she did 18 out of 30, landing her an average. Social feedback was 26 out of 45, which was low, and physiological states was 24 out of 40, which is also low. These results are really used to help devise ways to enhance a student's self-esteem and their motivation in the areas of reading and writing. Nicole was really thorough with this test, and she questioned kind of the meaning of each question as she went through and did it. She was just very objective. For example, on question 8, it says, "I feel good inside when I read." And out loud, she thought to herself, well, yeah, if I'm reading something nice, but, if I was reading a sad story, then I wouldn't feel good. So should I say strongly agree, or should I say, I don't know, I'll say undecided. And this was basically her approach to all of the questions. And she answered a lot of them as being undecided. I feel like if this test was in a different format, maybe with smiley faces or pictures, she might have got a completely different score. I honestly don't really think that the score represents the way she feels about herself in all of these categories, because undecided was kind of her go-to. Even though she was leaning towards a more positive outlook, she just wrote undecided because she wasn't completely sure. So here is the graph or the grid of her results on that. And as you can see, there are 3 low and 2 at average. So we also did the Gray oral reading 5 test, and this is a norm reference reading comprehension test. It measures rate, accuracy, fluency, and comprehension. And the oral reading index is made up of the composite score of all the subtests. So she scored 84, which landed her in the 14th percentile, which is below average on her ORI. This test consists of a lot of short passages, and they increase in difficulty as you continue. And then they answer 5 questions about what they read. This was the last test that we did together, and she was getting tired, and she was getting discouraged as she went along. The thing about this test is you need to continue testing them past their comfort zone level, it starts to get harder, and you can't really stop until they get below a 2. So pushing her was kind of difficult. She started kind of slumping down, and I could tell she was done. So I actually stopped the test, and we had to continue it on a different day, um, because I just didn't want her to feel bad. And even on that second day I went in, she was noticeably discouraged after reading the last two tests or stories that I told her were above her grade level to to make her feel a little bit better, but she was like, "Oh, that's hard," and I don't know. And so we went back and read a couple of the prior ones, and I gave her a lot of positive feedback for that, and she seemed to leave on a pretty happy note. So let's look at the grid for those results. So for rate, her raw score was 11, which put her in the second percentile, with a scaled score of 4, an age equivalency of 7, and a grade equivalency of 1.2. This leaves her in the quote poor status. For the accuracy, she got a raw score of 15, which left her in the 5th percentile, a scaled score of 5, age equivalency of 7, a grade equivalency of 1.7, and a status also of poor. For rate and accuracy combined, that's how you get the fluency score. So her raw score was 28, her percentile was 5, her scaled score was 5, her age equivalency was 7.3, and her grade equivalency was 1.4, also in the poor status. For comprehension, her raw score was 19, her percentile rank was 50, and her scaled score was 9. Her age equivalency was 7.3, and her grade equivalency was 2, which left her in the average. So all of this gives us our oral reading index, which left her in the 14th percentile and a below average overall ranking status. Her comprehension score was the best one, and while she did struggle with her speed, accuracy, and the fluency, she did seem to understand everything she was reading. So she just needs more time, I think, and she'll develop these other skills, and those scores will go up. So my recommendations for Nicole: she has great phonological awareness, especially compared to her comprehension of sight words. So she just takes more time, but she does understand. And it's just, I think, at this point, a matter of getting her the practice and the repetition that she needs to really develop her literacy. She needs help in the area of word identification with the sight words. She would benefit from, I think, from supportive instructional strategies to help increase her abilities in the area of word and letter identification. She needs to go back through the alphabet. She needs to practice distinguishing between, her B's and D's. She also says that she has problems telling the difference between lowercase p's and q's. I think further testing for informal measures and diagnostic assessment is needed for Nicole, and that may reveal that it would be advantageous for her to possibly even remain in the 4th grade for an extra year, just to give herself the time she needs to develop those skills. She needs to catch up, and she also needs to develop some more confidence in her literacy. And she may qualify for an IEP, but we would also need further testing. So what did I learn through this process? Give yourself lots of time. Oh my goodness. She needed breaks, and we ran out of time, and then she got tired and discouraged, and I felt bad. And that was part of the gray oral reading test. I didn't realize it was going to take so long. So even though I had gone through the test material prior, it just took longer than I thought it would, and it was so much work for her. So really give yourself lots of time. Do this in 2 or 3 sessions. Read through everything before a few times. I skimmed through everything, and I knew what I was going to say, and I went through it, but the second time I went in, I felt so much more confident, and maybe it was because I've never given a test before, but really reading through everything a few times helped. and bring extra copies of the test because she messed up and she was upset about the eraser mark, and um, she needed a new copy of the Easy CBM test, and I had one. So I was super happy that I had actually thought about that. So that concludes my show. I hope that I covered everything, and thank you for watching.